Hey, it's John from Level the Playing Field. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms. We're on TikTok at LPF Podcast, Instagram at LPF Podcast, and Twitter at LPF Podcast 86. And while you're at it, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on any platform that you're listening to our podcast.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of Level the Playing Field. I'm Dave, and I'm here with John, who is trying to sabotage us because he brought a bag of Sour Patch Kids, and we almost just skipped recording and downed the entire bag in one sitting.
Yeah, my tongue is on fire. I ate too many too fast, and now my tongue is burning. So, worth the sacrifice for sure.
They're so good. It's just so yummy. So we'll start with the Colorado Avalanche. They won the Stanley Cup yesterday, and it took a game longer than we anticipated, but a predictable result. They were just so good. Someone mentioned, I didn't even realize, someone mentioned to me today at work that they only lost 4 games the whole postseason. 2 against the Blues, 2 against the Lightning, and then that was it.
Yep, really strong run through the playoffs there. Definitely had a little bit of ups and downs. They had their own injuries that they were navigating, or the Lightning navigated their postseason, especially the ending of it with some injuries. But the Avalanche had to do that throughout as well. So,
Kadri just had surgery on his thumb or whatever, right?
Yep. So to be able to do that, and some of the other guys I think were battling some like lingering issues as well. So to navigate all of that and to have the successful run that they did, I know that the last couple of seasons that the Avalanche seem to be the team that has like all this potential, and then they kind of like flame out and wash out in the playoffs. So I guess for them it's good to see that like all that hardship is paying off with the Stanley Cup. Maybe the Maple Leafs could take a page out of the Avalanche book there with all these lofty expectations.
Yeah, the Leafs are a mess. That's a whole other conversation.
Go ahead.
Oh, you go.
All right. So in watching some of the celebration stuff, they skate around with the Stanley Cup above their head, and they transfer to each other, and they all take their lap. Like, that's pretty cool. And so they're getting ready for their like team I'm on the ice picture with everyone. And I forget who the player is now, but the player's skating into the pile and like loses his footing and like falls and puts the cup down to like help break his fall and just dents the bottom of it. So like within 10 minutes of having the Stanley Cup, they've already damaged it. It wasn't even through like any aggressive partying. It was just like a guy who gets paid to skate not being able to skate with the Stanley Cup. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then there's a video of the picture that was taken, and you can see all the players' faces reaction as the cup hits the ground. And I'm like, that is pretty funny. That they're all like, oh, what have you done already? So that guy is not going to live it down for a little while. I'm sure that whatever he brings into the locker room or to any of the parties that they're going to be at this summer, that they're going to probably do something like that to like protect whatever he's got and make a big joke of it. That's what I'd be doing, just to like have a good time with the guy.
That'll be brought up on broadcast 20 times per season the rest of this guy's career, 100%. You think they fix it? I bet you they don't.
Not until they're done. Like, I think until they're done with it, doing their tours and stuff, and then they'll fix it.
I don't know. That's kind of like... It's kind of like historic, right? Then not like historic and like this crazy, like... But, like, it's part of the story of, like...
I don't know. They've bashed in the top before, and they've always fixed that. So, you got to think. And those rings come off, right?
Yeah.
So, you got to be doing some work there, I'd imagine. But
I think it would be a cool story.
If they didn't fix it?
At least for, like, a season or something, just to leave it... leave it at the Hockey Hall of Fame, and then we can be like, oh, hey, that's where that guy dropped it.
Yeah, so hilarious to watch. Just... the dents immediately, like you can tell.
It's so bad.
It's really, really bad. So I thought that was hilarious. And then to round off, unless you have some other analysis you want to add, Nazem Kadri has, I guess, carried around the label that he's a liability on playoff teams, and we kind of watched that a little bit when he was on the Maple Leafs, kind of just getting himself suspended. just instigating, getting himself into some questionable hitting of other players. And so he was being interviewed after they won the Stanley Cup, and he said, well, like, how's this feel? He goes, well, it's everybody who said I was a liability, they can kiss my ass. And then he like laughed about it and like skated away. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that he's got some vindication here, or is he who he thought he is?
No, absolutely. He was a stud all this year, and he has every right to shove it in their face, right? Especially, I didn't realize. So obviously, it's a shot at Kyle Dubas, who traded him away. But what I didn't really realize, again, during a conversation at work today, somebody pointed out that like apparently Elliot Friedman, who was interviewing him, was one of the people who was like really really hard on him, like at the time that all this was going down. So like he kind of just like said it straight to his face, like, "Look at me now, bitch."
Yeah, that's pretty. I didn't know that either, so that's pretty sweet. I know that you take some personal satisfaction when the players are able to just sort of be who they are and say what they're feeling instead of giving the sugar-coated response. So
Yeah, like just think of the difference between like that someone who has like real feelings and emotions and said them versus Steph Curry, who is like giving this like same old nobody believed in us, it's us against the world. Like, we worked hard to get here. I can't believe we're done it. Like, same redundant fucking interview you hear every time someone wins.
he's probably just tired of making those speeches. He's won so much so often, and he's like run out of material.
It'd be amazing if he just like had it written and literally. I would give him so much more respect. We just like said it verbatim every single time, the exact same answers.
Yeah. So I thought that was a nice moment for Kadri, especially that he like went out not too long ago, got surgery done, and he came back, and his first game back he scored the OT winner. So that kind of stuff to like answer the call, right? Like not necessarily putting his name in the headlines for some of the things he had in the past. He did it with his box score, so that's impressive. And then yeah, like I was saying earlier, just that they've rounded into form and have taken advantage of all that talent and won the Stanley Cup. Not that it really matters yet because it's just so soon after the Stanley Cup win, but they are favored to repeat. And the Maple Leafs are the team to come out of the East. They're favored to come out of the East. So it's just early predictions of next season's Stanley Cup playoffs, and maybe they'll be right. Maybe they'll be right.
That's such a stupid practice. Like, what information are they using to make those odds? Because like the Leafs have a cap crunch. They're going to be making tons of changes.
They have Captain Crunch on their team?
Yes, they do.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And like for example, like Kadri is a UFA this year, so that's a huge part of their team probably gone because he's going to want big money. So like what basis do they have to make, how do they know, like I don't know. It's just such a stupid. Are they actually like taking bets on that right now?
I'm sure that people are making bets right now.
It's insane.
So, not here. Not here. Definitely not from Dave. Dave thinks they're stupid, so he's not doing it.
Until we get a DraftKings sponsorship, and then go make those bets, boys.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit here and jump into some professional football. Notice that I did not say the NFL. It's because Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, as he should, as one of the owners of the XFL, has been heavily promoting the XFL on his Instagram. He has a ton of followers, so it makes sense that he's looking to use his account to generate buzz and popularity for the XFL. And all of that's fine. I bring this up because in the latest video I've seen, he's wearing like workout gear with the number on the back, 54, and he's got the XFL logo on the front. And like, but he's just kind of like standing in the background, like watching those people do that. And so I'm just saying, like, this guy's like the most popular movie star in the world, perhaps like just one of the most popular figures in the world. Like, stop like being this guy who wants to like clearly relive his football life. That's what I see it as in those videos. Like, if you're there as the owner, like you're like generating the buzz and stuff, then like fine, like dress athletically if you want, but to like wear the number and all that stuff, I'm like, okay, stop trying to be like one of the guys. Like, you're not one of the guys here. You own the organization that they're trying to make a living out of. So like, stop making this mostly about you and more about the players who you're saying you're building this dream for.
But it is about him. Because, like, that's why they brought him in. Because nobody else, like, they need, before the players have a chance to make a decent product, they need name recognition. They need people to have a reason to watch. Also, I'm sure that he had, like, that's his clothing line that he's promoting. That's what he's wearing.
Well, I'm assuming it's Under Armour because he's sponsored by Under Armour.
Right, so that's why he's wearing it. Because he's advertising that clothing.
No, see, like, my point about it was that, like, he's wearing, like, the workout shirt or, like, the training shirts like all those other guys are wearing. Like, he's part of the training camp. Like, you're not part of the training camp. You're there to promote it. Stop trying to be the player.
Finding reasons to hate for no reason.
I just think it's a bit much. Like,
also think of it like, if you're like the most successful person ever, like Dwayne Johnson is, and the one thing that you weren't successful at was becoming a professional football player, wouldn't that eat at you like forever?
I don't know. I have like $1 billion and I have all this other stuff. I feel like,
yeah, but your whole life you wanted to do something and you did it. You accomplished anything you could ever imagine, but the one thing that got away from you, probably because he probably wasn't good enough really to be a star in the NFL anyways, but he also had that injury that robbed him of the opportunity. That would bother you forever.
I don't know. I think if he didn't have anything else, but we're not talking about a guy who like ended up like working in a cubicle for the rest of his life. Like, I feel like he just needs to let it go. Like, be the promoter, do all the things that he's going to do. There's nothing wrong with that. Just stop trying to be one of those guys. You're not. You're the guy who bought the organization.
These little things that bother you are so funny to me. Like, it makes no sense why you care.
It's just like, get out of the way. Like, there you could see other like some of these players' faces like in the background. Like, there's like no.
Yeah, but do you know who any of those people are?
Because he should be doing a better job of promoting the product.
No, but
it's self-promotion. It's not even about the XFL anymore. It's about The Rock owning the XFL, but not talking about. And he puts a super long post underneath his video talking about how he's like creating this so people have an opportunity to play and like to fulfill their dreams and do all this stuff. And then in the video, it's just him standing there with his big jacked back and a 54 on it. Like. That doesn't match what you're saying.
The best way to do that isn't for him to be talking about some asshole you've never heard of before. Because the name recognition of the players is not going to be what makes the XFL successful or not. Because they're never going to have the best players. Yeah, they have a second-rate product. And so, Tom Brady's and Peyton Manning's and the people that people watch the NFL for aren't going to be there. They have to have another way of promoting it.
Sure. And like I've also made this criticism that like the XFL, he's going to have to be a player and he's going to have to be the coach and the owner and the broadcaster and the ref and the concession stands operator for this to be successful.
It's a little much.
I don't think it is. Like, have you seen the USFL stuff? They're playing in front of like empty stands. And so like it's just me personally watching that thinking, if this is your only selling point, like you're going to have to do something different because eventually like The Rock's not going to be at every single game. Yeah, he's not going to be in front of all of those things. So as much of it is like, yeah, I like to build a brand off my name, like he's not going to be playing. So what's going to happen then? It's going to fall off a cliff because it's only been about The Rock's promotion. There's no like showing about like what their game is like or who the people are.
They don't have any examples of what their game is like. What are they supposed to show?
They can video clips of the people doing stuff that they do in all these other promo tapes. They can shoot promos. If they want to do that stuff, then they get The Rock to do a bunch of promos instead of these like hack, I'm doing this for the players, but then the video's only with The Rock featured in it. That's not about a league then.
You got to generate interest first, and then you can build, and then you can market the players. Nobody knows who any of them are. Nobody is gonna know who they are.
So shouldn't we let people know who they are?
Sure, tell me who they are, and I guarantee you I won't watch.
Well, get him in a video with The Rock. Shouldn't we be building
But
using
then
his
he's
face
still
to
in it.
build the buzz? Yeah, but at least he's bringing in the people who are actually going to be there every
He's gonna
week.
put his arm around it. This is my little buddy Todd. He's the quarterback of the San Jose fucking Fox.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
that's so lame.
Have you seen the promos they've done with the coaches where they're sitting in a boardroom and it's like super hacked that's what they're doing?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, but
Because
I've
it wasn't
seen all
on
of
The
this.
Rock's Twitter
It
feed.
looks so poorly done in that regard. Like none of those people are actually going to be on the field doing the actual sport. But that's what they're promoting. It's like, oh, look at all these people who have been there that have name recognition, but they're not doing any work about the game. So that's how.
It's also not Dwayne Johnson. Like, he's not the one coming up with these marketing plans. He's just the face.
I don't think so.
You think that he's sitting in a boardroom coming up with
Yes.
all the marketing ideas? No, there's
Yeah, and with his energy drink, and with his tequila, he's in all of it. He talks about how he's in all of it. So if that's what he's doing, awesome. But like,
So he's making 7 movies a year.
Yes.
He's working out 7 hours a day.
yes,
And he's also in charge of the XFL's entire marketing strategy.
not the entire marketing strategy, but he's in the planning of it for
yeah,
sure.
he shows
It's
up
like,
to a meeting per quarter.
That's still more than what other people are doing, and he's definitely there
Right.
more than a quarter.
So
If he's flying out to do all
other
these
people are
promos,
coming
he's
up
in
with
the
these
meetings.
plans and like, hey, you know what would be cool if you put up a video of yourself in the XFL stuff. And he's like, okay, cool, no problem.
Yeah, I don't think it's as straightforward as that. But hey, when you're the most popular person in the world, right? Even your shit's gold. So here we are. So we'll carry on. XFL sucks.
It probably will.
The Brooklyn Nets recently have made the statement
Speaking of things who suck,
they are looking to let's restart this. They're looking to make their own statement with this Kyrie Irving controversy and say that they're preparing to move on without Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, because with Kyrie Irving saying that he's interested in playing in other locations, namely Los Angeles, that seems to be the location that has come up the most lately. That Kevin Durant would be a little disgruntled and look to move on as well, because what he thought the Nets arrangement was going to be is different. So the Nets have come out and said, hey, like if that's what's going to happen with these two players and make those decisions, like we're just going to start planning to be without them. And that seems to like maybe have forced some hands, because Kyrie Irving today then opted into his player option, which makes it significantly more challenging for the Nets to sort of move him. It'll be more challenging. Not that they can't do it, but it will be more difficult just because of the sheer number that is attached to his contract for this season. So he's back. He said that he's ready to play. And with that sort of statement, it lends itself to believe for people to believe that Kevin Durant's going to run it back again, and they're going to try this again to see if they can make headway in the playoffs and go for the championship.
if I'm Durant, this doesn't change anything for me. Why? Just because he decided that he was probably only going to get a 1 or 2 year deal wherever he went, because it's the Kyrie, this is what I'm talking about, because he's so unreliable that no one's going to give him like 5 years guaranteed, that he decided to pick up his option, and worst case scenario, have like a look at me year and then take his talents elsewhere after that. If this Durant to Portland thing is real, I would do that in a heartbeat before I ever considered playing with Kyrie ever again.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know the inner workings of the deals or like what their arrangement is. Even Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving's arrangement is, but the idea that like they've kind of tied themselves to the Nets, and it seems like that's what they're gonna do until at least this iteration of their contract's over. But yeah, I understand Durant's frustration, whether he gets his way or not there. Like if Irving did sort of like make his way out of Brooklyn, like why would Durant want to be there? Like that was not part of his plan. And I know that players have far more control in these things than they've ever had. But yeah, like I'd be like, okay, like I was here under the impression that this was the setup. It's no longer the setup. It's time for me to move on, and you can move on and do what you need to do as an organization. As to that Portland rumor that Dame Lillard started by putting a tweet out, and then there was a Photoshop of them together with Durant wearing the red Portland Trailblazers jersey. How viable that is, I don't think it's that viable. I don't think that Durant has any desire to go to a smaller market at this point in his career. I think to maximize the other parts of his life that he keeps sort of like undercover, like in terms of his investments and like networking on that part of it, I think he's better suited in a larger market to do that sort of like business dealing stuff, like his franchise ownership, his esports businesses, all those sorts of things. It stands to like be done in an easier fashion in a larger city where there is way more of that, where like Portland doesn't really have a ton of head offices and people traveling to make like the big business deals.
Travel's so easy for when you have his kind of money that I don't think where he plays matters. And his like outside of basketball income is so different than like say LeBron James, right? LeBron is entirely, or not entirely, but like a ton of it is visibility and commercials and movie deals and shit like that, right? Whereas when Durant, well, I know you already know this, but when Durant was in Golden State, he made a ton of tech deals, right? And he's making a shit ton of money doing that. And that, you don't have to be, you can be anywhere and do that. I don't think you have to be in New York or LA or Chicago to.
But that, like all the tech people are in like the Bay Area and San Francisco.
Right, he moved across the country already to play in Brooklyn.
You don't think he used that location to like meet with them on a regular basis?
In Brooklyn?
No, in Golden State.
Right. Yeah, he
so
did
like
at the
he
time.
was there, and so he used that. So that's my point. So like if he's in New York or LA or another city where like there's a particular industry that he's interested in, it would make sense for it to be him to be there so he can have those meetings because he's there for half the season anyways. Where if he's in Portland, like, yeah, he's not there for half the season, but he's in a bunch of different places. So it is more difficult for him to do that from a place like Portland. That's the point I'm making.
I don't know. Without knowing exactly what he's doing, it's hard to know if the impact that'll have, right? Like how many of those companies are based in New York? Who knows? Maybe he's gonna invest heavily in Starbucks.
They have to go to Seattle.
That was in Portland.
No, Seattle.
Portland's right there. Close enough.
So
maybe Kevin Durant will bring the Seattle Supersonics back after he took them away in the first place.
Yeah, that would be a very boss move of himself. So the Brooklyn Nets situation is just like a hot mess. It was a hot mess for this entire season. This off season, it continues to be a hot mess. This upcoming season, will we see Ben Simmons? Like that's
who the fuck knows,
right? Like there's just so many question marks around this team.
That's why if I'm Durant, this doesn't like Kyrie coming back. It doesn't change anything for me. I'm out of here anyways. Like thanks. I had fun. I guess I don't know. I was here.
Yeah.
And now I don't want to be here because this is just a fucking disaster.
Well, they've got one more year together.
But
right?
why would you want to do that?
Just to play it out.
Everything Kyrie sold you on has been a fat fucking lie. So if I'm him, I'm done.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that sentiment. And then just to round out here on the Kyrie Irving scenario, there was talks in some of the reading I was doing in a couple articles that now that he's opted in, then they could sort of sign and trade him, and it doesn't matter where they trade him to at that point, right? Like it's just whoever is interested. So that was a scenario that they had just sort of floated out there as well, is that they can sort of just make his life a little more difficult if they so chose to. So we'll see how that plays out. And then just to go along to sort of like the players who have been good in our lifetimes and perhaps have aged out or things have happened. John Wall, he's finally come to terms with the Houston Rockets, and they're gonna buy him out, and he gives back like $7 million of his player option to facilitate this deal. And not with him being bought out, he's going to clear waivers, and then he's made it clear that his intentions are to sign with the Los Angeles Clippers to form their own sort of big three with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and now John Wall. Thoughts on that?
So part of his buyout, was there a time machine involved? And take us back to 2013 when this would have been a big deal.
Hey, I don't know what he's got left, but he's definitely had a bunch of like pretty serious injuries in the last like 4 years. So can't imagine he's going to be as explosive as he was in his younger days.
Yeah, it's a exciting group of names, just like the Clippers always have. But in the end, like I can't imagine what Leonard has left in his knees. Paul George is very streaky and tends to shrink in the playoffs, and then Wall, who knows if Wall can even play anymore? Like he wasn't good enough. Like he was healthy all year and still didn't play. They were like, nah, we don't want this other guy to play, and we're not even gonna have you coming off the bench. You're just gonna stay home. We'll pay you to stay home.
Yeah, and he was like, "Thank you for my tens of millions of dollars."
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, that's the life right there. So we'll see what John Wall's got left in the tank. His former running mate Bradley Beal, he opted out of his player option, but he's now signed a 5-year deal. So Bradley Beal sticking around in Washington, happy to just be a guy who is the main guy on a team that's going absolutely nowhere.
He just wants to wake up, scores 25 points, and go back to bed and not care about the result.
Yep, and he's getting paid handsomely for that, like $240-something million, I think, is what he signed for. So, hey, congratulations, Bradley Beal. You're living the good life as well.
I don't get that. That's the same as we had this conversation about Votto a few weeks ago. It's the same with, like, Beal now. Like, the Washington is obviously never going to go anywhere during his career. Guys like Mike Trout, who signed for, like, 12 years with a team that's never shown any competency to put a good team together around him, even in a league with no salary cap. Like, it just... I don't know. Like, I would have a hard time choosing comfort knowing... like how, so, like, one thing I've never really understood is, like, when you're 3/4 of the way, or even, like, halfway through the season, and it becomes clear that you're not making the playoffs. How do you motivate yourself to even just, like, play hard the rest of the year? Like,
that's where like the motivation, the coaching, sports psychology, bonus incentives in contracts, all those things are there, right? You have to find an incentive, whether it's external or internally motivated. Like you gotta find a way because like, you're a professional. It's your job. So that part of it is there. And you see it in some players, right? Some players are able to do that, and others you can just noticeably see it. That they're like, oh, like they're not hustling, right? Like they're not chasing down a ball, or they're not like going to the net with intensity, right? Like we can see it when we watch it. It's just a matter of, are they doing enough that they're not going to be like heavily criticized for the amount of effort they're putting in? And then conversely, on the other side, they're the people who will try hard no matter what, right? Like those fierce competitors. Like, do you see Jimmy Butler mailing it in halfway through a lost season? I don't.
Michael Jordan Spawn would never do that.
Right? Like, I just don't see that happening for a player like that. He's got way too much ego and pride on him to let that happen. But there are definitely others that, like Kyrie Irving, for example, I could see him be like, yeah, I'm good. Put my body on the shelf, take it easy, get paid, right? Come back next year. So,
like Trout, for example, he's taken steps so he's like, him and the team have decided together to actively, like, to take some of the risk taking out of his game. So if you notice, like, he never leaves his feet to catch a ball. Like, you won't see him diving. He doesn't really steal anymore. When he came up, he was like electric. He was robbing home runs like almost every week, it seemed like. He was diving for balls. He could have probably been like an easy 40-40 guy. And now he'll steal like 15 bases a year. He'll probably rob a couple home runs, but I bet you that he doesn't go hard into the wall like he used to. He doesn't dive. All in the effort to preserve his body for this team that's going nowhere. But in the meantime, he makes a shit ton of money. So in the end, it doesn't really matter. But like he's actively made himself less marketable because the things that made him exciting, he doesn't do. Like he's still the greatest, but the things that make him exciting and marketable, he's taking that out of his game for a team that refuses to put a pitcher on his team.
Yeah, I think that now he can just live off the highlights of early in his career. That's maybe where he's at. Poor Mike Trout.
Poor Mike Trout crying to his hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, when he goes to sleep and when he has a runny nose, he just blows his nose with all of his money just laying around his house. Yeah, it sounds awful. But I get the sentiment. Just guys that are exceptionally gifted athletically, and then just to like know how hard they worked. Most of them, I would say, if not like the vast majority, like the 95%, like how hard they work to then get to the professional league of their sport.
And then you just settle.
And then just say, okay, I'm good.
Like you're a great player, but you just decide that winning's not important.
Or they do, but they're not willing to like do it somewhere else. And like they just are like, okay, you keep telling me that you're gonna put a winner around me, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah, but yeah, again, the Trout example, like it's not that they don't try; it's that they're stupid.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, what's the number one thing that we don't ever have? Pitching. Cool. Let's go spend $250 million on Anthony Rendon, a third baseman. Right? And then they're like, oh shit, we don't have any pitchers. So in this 21 round draft, we're going to draft 21 pitchers. Hopefully we hit on one and they're ready in like 4 years. So don't worry, Mike Trout. Help's coming.
But then they got Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, for like another year.
And then he's just gonna.
Unless he's gonna be comfortable with the same setup where they just miss the playoffs every year and just get rich as fuck and live in a beautiful city.
Yeah, I feel like he's probably gonna go like the Dodgers or something like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like Trout could be as comfortable. He could have gone to San Diego. He could go to there's like other teams on the coast there that are good teams who like if you put Trout on San Diego, they're gonna win the World Series. Right? So and you don't have to like get traded there and take all their farm system and everything. Like he's had opportunities to leave and he's signed like 3 different contracts with the Angels, right? Like he could have been a free agent and he kept choosing not to be. Again, the league doesn't have a salary cap. He could be anywhere. He could be on the Dodgers, and they could be spending $500 million a year and winning World Series every year, and he just chooses not to.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any of these stories because they don't come out in August of the MLB season. So
not stories; they're completely fabricated. But like, what team wouldn't want him? Right. As far as I can tell, he's a great teammate. Probably the best player. Definitely the best player we've seen since Barry Bonds. Right? And I don't know. If all it cost you is money, why wouldn't you do it?
I don't know. I don't get paid the big bucks to figure those things out. So Dave frustrated with Mike Trout's career.
Yeah, it's wasted. He's going to have arguably one of the best careers in the history of the sport, and it's going to be wasted on a team that finished above 500 like 3 times in his whole career.
Yep, tough look for the kid.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Mike.
And I'm Tabby, and we are Happy Hour Podcast.
We wanted to come to you on this episode and tell you about the world record we are going to break.
The longest running podcast was 36 hours. We are going to be shooting for 37 hours and or more.
This event will happen on August 26th of this year on our 1-year anniversary.
Via live stream on our Facebook page and a YouTube exclusive.
We've also got some help
Keeping us awake and the audience entertained.
from awesome podcasting friends like
Tallboy Radio.
Wheel of Horror,
Pub Time Podcast.
Bleach Bros Podcast,
Dad's on Dayquil.
Ryan Leskis of Pain Productions,
Cheap Seat Reviews.
Florida Men on Florida Man,
Matty Ice Media.
Listen Podcast,
Whiskey Hell Podcast.
Derazzled Podcast,
Porn Stash Podcast.
That Damn Podcast.
And Designated Quizzers.
We would love for you to join us.
And maybe bring along some coffee.
See you on August 26th.
So we're going to go and change gears to from baseball and what Dave loves to talk about to something that I love to talk about, which is the UFC. And Jon Jones, he hasn't come out and said any of this. This has all come from Dana White, that Jon Jones is going to look to make his heavyweight debut this year, 2022. And it's either going to be against current champion Francis Ngannou, who's currently recovering from knee surgery. I believe it's ACL. Can't remember, but significant knee surgery. He's rumored to be back at the end of 22, perhaps the beginning of 2023. So depending on the timeline, he could be fighting Francis Ngannou. And if he can't get matched up with Ngannou, he'll be fighting what many consider to be the greatest heavyweight of all time because of the number of defenses he's made as the heavyweight champion. That's Stipe Miocic. He was the champion before he was knocked out by Francis Ngannou, and Miocic hasn't fought since that fight. And so it would be his first fight back in it'll be about a year, over a year by the time, if this happens, he'd be in the octagon. And for Jon Jones, he hasn't fought since 2020. So he sat out the entire 2020-21 calendar year, embroiled in a contract dispute. He feels like he should be compensated much more than he is, just based on his name and notoriety and what he would bring to a pay-per-view card. And they were very far apart. And it seems like perhaps they've worked some of that out. So he's ready to be a heavyweight. And those are his two potential opponents. And I could see both of them happening. And I guess for those of you that are unfamiliar with Jon Jones, incredibly gifted fighter. He has one loss, but it's a DQ and a super suspect one at that. So he's essentially an undefeated fighter. Hasn't ever really looked like he was in a ton of danger in any of his fights. They've been competitive, but no, he never has looked rocked and had to recover from getting knocked down and whatever. And so he has all of this talent, but can't seem to keep himself out of trouble outside of the octagon. And so that's been his knock, is that for all the gifts that he has, he's not perhaps the most focused. He's not perhaps the most diligent outside of the octagon. We're not talking about someone who's a bad trainer, right? Or someone who doesn't put in the work in the gym. It's DUIs, taking drugs, cocaine, that kind of stuff.
Did you not have any PED problems?
He did pop. And then he said that it was due to a sex enhancing drug, and I guess it is. I don't I've never heard that it was a masking agent or anything like that. And he popped for that, and then he popped it subsequently again for that same substance. But then they did a study, they did research on it, and apparently when it goes into your system, it metabolizes super slowly. And so that the amount you'll go over, but it's really just that original amount metabolizing super slowly. Because he's been followed ever since that, right, by USADA. And so he did pop for it again, and they were looking at punishment.
Two positives off the same.
That's right. And so that seemed to be proven and all of that kind of stuff. But yes, he did for PEDs. But then on top of it, though, mostly it's just he gets himself into assault altercations. He hit and run with a woman that was pregnant in New Mexico. 2 or 3 DUIs at this point. Has admittedly done coke. I know that when he was fighting Daniel Cormier, one of the times he fought Daniel Cormier, And Cormier's like, yeah, like you tested positive for like PEDs. He's like, yeah, imagine if I wasn't doing coke, what I would have done to you. Like, so he's come out and said this kind of stuff. So when I like the to get around back to what I'm gonna talk about is like if he fights Francis Ngannou, he's never fought at heavyweight. He has a bit of like credibility issues about getting to the octagon. Does he deserve a title shot right out of the gate? Based on like him being such a gifted fighter, but also being like a troubled person out of the octagon. What do you think?
I think I could be wrong, but I don't think the UFC always goes by who like the number one contender is. Like
No.
if you're gonna give us the biggest fight, then you get the fight. So if they so like merit doesn't necessarily have to be the deciding factor here. Also, if like what you're saying, well, I've heard the same things, but I don't know as much about it as you just like you're saying. He's never even really been challenged at he was a light heavyweight before him.
Yeah.
So if you just dominate a division, what makes you have to like start at the bottom of the division ahead of you? Like tons of times people have like gone up or down to contend for a title. Like this isn't a novel thing.
No. I guess like so why I was bringing it up was because
Live his time away.
the time away, that like at times he's not been reliable as the headliner for the UFC because he's been pulled from fights for ongoing issues outside of the octagon. So like that's sort of where I was at with it. And like you're absolutely right. He doesn't have to fight his way up the division. I don't think that is the UFC's plan. So really the only other people that have had this opportunity to like jump into a title fight right away, like George St. Pierre did it when he came back to fight Bisping. Conor McGregor did it when he moved up to lightweight. He got a title shot right away.
Like Cormier do it too or something?
Yeah, I think so. He was that light heavyweight champ, and he had defended a couple of times. There really wasn't anyone else there, and so he was struggling to make light heavyweight. He's a larger guy, and so he was planning on going to heavyweight anyways because like Jon Jones would come back, and then Jon Jones has got Cormier's number, so he's like, okay, I'm ready to jump to heavyweight anyways, and so that's how he won the belt, and he was a simultaneous champ. So no, he doesn't have to wait in line necessarily. But I think all those other issues are why I asked the question. Like, if they let him fight for the championship, I'm not going to be like outraged by it. It's just, it's more like do you trust him based on his history? Is that really the move that needs to be made? Like marketing wise, yeah, like what you mentioned, it would be the biggest fight in the heavyweight division in a long time. Right? Like Jon Jones is a huge name. And at this point, there isn't a ton of options at heavyweight. Like he fought the Ngannou, who just is coming off the knee surgery, fought the number one contender, beat him. He, before that, beat Stipe Miocic and knocked him out, like cold. So there isn't really people calling for that fight yet. So yeah, like a new face, and the new face is Jon Jones. Like for that part of it, yeah, the matchmaking makes sense. It's more so the other things. And like maybe he gets one fight to show what it's like as a heavyweight, and then he gets a title fight. But I think that if they did that and he did lose, that would take some of the shine off of him. And so I get why they would promote it as a title fight. The other thing here is that for all the other divisions, the weight difference is like 10 to 15 pounds, right? So like a light heavyweight though, the limit is 205, and then the weight limit for heavyweight is 265. So like
That's the max?
Yeah. You can't weigh more than 265 for a championship fight. So there's a 60-pound window, right? And so that part of it, and he spent the last 2 years bulking up.
Yeah, he's a huge
like,
guy.
He's a huge guy already, and then he's been bulking up. So he's been doing it the right way for sure, but I think that would be an interesting thing to see too, because he's been the biggest, fastest, strongest light heavyweight. The strength thing, I don't know if it'll still be there at heavyweight, and that would be an interesting to see how that works out, especially because the weight in between the two divisions is so much more significant. So I don't know how he'll fare.
To me, as like the most casual of fans, it kind of smells like a little bit of desperation from the UFC. Like Dana White's gone hard after Jon Jones, saying we don't need him. He doesn't need if he never comes back, who cares? And now they're like putting him in a position to be like, I wouldn't want to say revive because they haven't gone anywhere, but like they're definitely counting on this to like keep their name alive or not. I'm over exaggerating a little bit, but like
they know that there's a significant payday
if
Jones comes back and fights and becomes a champion in the heavyweight division, and that any fight that he'll then have will be a moneymaker for them.
Right. So why do you go from saying we don't need this guy to putting him in like the number one position to make a huge payday for you and himself? Like either you think that your product is getting a little stagnant and maybe your big names aren't big names anymore and the guys coming up can't do it the same way. Like again, I don't really know, but other than like Covington who talks shit nonstop but isn't a good enough fighter to back it up, like you don't have McGregor dominating and like being the most entertaining athlete in sports anymore, right?
Yep.
So like maybe he thinks he's lacking personalities and big names, and maybe going a little bit back on his tough talk from before.
That I would agree with that for sure. There's been a lot of changeover in the last 5 years, I'd say, of the UFC and their roster, and like even who the champions are. There've been some mainstays for sure, but there's been new champs coming in, and they don't have as much notoriety because they aren't around. They haven't been part of like those big fights. Like they're looking to have those big fights now. They're looking to build their name now, and then maybe not as great on the microphone or as flashy as some of the other fighters have been that were former champions. So like Conor McGregor on the microphone, and obviously he was winning in highlight fashion. Anderson Silva there, same thing, not great on the mic, but he was knocking people out in crazy ways. George St. Pierre, right? There's a bunch of these guys that have been gone from the sport, even people who weren't necessarily like longtime champs, right? Like Michael Bisping, he went out he lost to GSP, but like for a long time he was a very prominent fighter. Nate Diaz hasn't been around. He's been a guy who's been able to generate buzz for fights. Jorge Masvidal is in the background right now. So there's a bunch of these guys that aren't winning or aren't visible because they can't get fights or they're retired and they're looking for new faces. And if Jon Jones is still around, like he's 35 or will be 35. So he's not too much longer for this fight game either. So I would agree with what you said, that Dana White was looking to use whatever method possible to get Jon Jones back to the table. And finally they've probably come hat in hand and been like, hey, like we need you, man. What do you want? And they've worked something out. So we'll see what happens there. Hopefully we do get to see a fight. I think it would be exciting. I'm very curious to see how he deals with the size of these heavyweights, because it's not just like big fat guys anymore in the heavyweight division. Like that used to be the thing, right? Just like,
what was that guy's name? The guy was like shaped like me, but a foot and a half taller.
like Roy Nelson.
I don't remember.
He had like the big mullet. He always rubbed his belly.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's who it is. So like now that there's these like ultra athletic, like super jacked, huge guys that are heavyweights, right? So I'll be interested to see sort of how he deals with that and the power that these guys have. Like touch you on the face one time, you're sleeping. So all it takes is that one shot, that one opportunity. So we'll keep it in the fight game. You know, my favorite here is just athletes on the way out of their careers looking to generate some buzz in another arena. So Adrian Peterson and LeVeon Bell, one of Dave's favorites from his Pittsburgh Steelers days, they're set up to have a boxing match at the Crypto.com Arena, formerly Staples Arena, on the undercard of some YouTubers boxing match.
Oh, that's so sad.
What do you think about this? That Adrian Peterson and Le'Veon Bell are going to be on the undercard of a YouTubers boxing event.
Which YouTubers? Do you
I
know?
don't know. just there's like
I wouldn't even know if you said
there's
it.
two names like, oh, YouTuber so and so fighting so and so, and I'm like, oh man, I'm this out of touch. I have no idea who those people are, and they're the main eventers. I'm here to talk about LeVeon Bell fighting Adrian Peterson in a boxing match. So first, who do you think wins?
Adrian Peterson.
100%. There's no way Le'Veon Bell beats Adrian Peterson.
Like, aside from just, like, the physicality of the two guys, like, Adrian Peterson's been training for this for years.
Yeah.
He's been beating the shit out of his kids getting ready for this fight for years. He's born for this. He's got this.
Yeah, so just how the mighty have fallen, and like the idea of like keeping yourself a little relevant in the sporting news, and
But that's not even relevant. It's like you might be spoken about for like a day, and then it's gone.
but that's more than what they're being spoken about right now.
Isn't Peterson? Did Peterson retire?
No, they're both free agents. So maybe it's just to generate buzz, I think, as training camps come into play. They need maybe a third back or an emergency back kind of situation.
He's trying to prove that they're ready to be the enforcer to get brought in at the end of
That's
the year.
it. That's it. Everyone needs an enforcer, right? Unwritten rules of football. So yeah, just like really hard to like read about that and think why is like, if it's just because they're genuinely interested in it, cool. But if this is because like financially they need another payday, I will be a little bit sad about that.
They'd have to be awful with their money for that to be true.
But
Both of them made like Bell less, but
significant amount of money.
yeah, his last contract was for like $70 million almost. Like you should be okay off that.
But it wouldn't be the first time that we've heard that pro football players squandered their playing money. But I hope, like I said, that it's just because, you know what, they think boxing is cool and they want to beat each other up and collect a little money for it, and cool.
I just wish that if you're gonna do stuff like this, like find a guy that you actually like battled with in your playing days. Like if you're Le'Veon Bell, go fight Terrell Suggs.
Yeah, Terrell Suggs would destroy
Yeah,
him.
okay, but I'm just saying like something like that.
Mike Tomlin.
No, Mike Tomlin is the GOAT. He's the best.
That would be a good fight, though. People would pay to watch that. Because you know that he like does not like Le'Veon Bell.
I don't know if that's true.
Like, not like hates him, but like doesn't like, I don't know if they're going to hang out for Thanksgiving dinner.
I think us as fans take that more personally than the players do. They could be just talking shit, but every time I ever hear them talk about people holding out or whatever, they're like, yeah, like you have to make your money. You have to, like, nobody's long for this, so you have to maximize what you got when you got it.
Does Mike Tomlin like Antonio Brown?
Actually, you know what? I guess you didn't listen to that.
Nah, I did not listen to that clip. I just saw the other one was like, oh, any chance of Antonio Brown coming back to the Steelers? Like, no chance.
No, and yeah, so that's how they clipped it. But so I listened to that whole podcast. It was actually really, really good. You should listen to it. And
After you listen to our podcast.
no, I meant like John should.
Oh.
You guys should keep doing this, and then you can do whatever you want after. He said like that time has passed. He's never coming back. Like that's not even a conversation. But then he also went on to say that like during the time he was here, he has an appreciation for him that like that can't even articulate. Like they've been, because he also, part of what he was talking about before they even started talking about Antonio Brown is that Tomlin, he values like will and hard work before talent, right? And as talented as Antonio Brown was, he didn't get where he was because of his talent. He was like a 7th round draft pick. Like he's a smaller guy. He's not the fastest, but he was like an exact route runner, right? Like he got where he was because of the work he put in, right? Not because he's Randy Moss. He's born 6'5", 179 pounds or whatever, right? And just like built to play that position. So yeah, Tomlin expressed a very, very glowing like memory of how he remembers how he feels about Antonio Brown.
He's going to use that to play mind games when they step into the squared circle at another YouTuber's boxing event.
Unlikely.
Nah, I would pay to see that, though. I'd pay to see Omar Epps beat the shit out of Antonio Brown. But instead, we're going to have to watch LeVeon Bell fight Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
So, yeah, tune into some YouTuber's main event. I can't believe that's a thing. I just said that out loud.
Is it going to be the Paul Brothers?
No, it's some other
production company.
No, it's not. It's another company that's copying Triller. So amazing that there's now just multiple paths to this boxing profession.
That's the thing that's like.
Why do they all choose boxing? That's what I want to know.
Because it's like a, I don't know.
Right, like out of all the things that they could have chosen, right? They're like, you know what we should do? Start boxing promotions. They could have started battle robots promotions. They could have started power boats, like little remote control power boat racing. They could have chosen go-karting. They could have chosen.
Yeah, but the things you're saying are all things that like just sound like something you would do on their YouTube channel already. This is a much like larger production.
I suppose so. They could have done fencing. They could have done horse jumping.
The one thing that you hate the Paul brothers, whatever, they've put in an amount of work that these other YouTubers definitely have not. Right? It's like whatever you think of like the Paul brothers and their legitimacy as boxers, like these other guys are just going up there and like slapping each other. It's fucking embarrassing.
Yeah. And so you can like and subscribe to our channel.
Yeah. Sign up for me fighting John.
That's it. That will not go well. I would get my shit kicked in. So, that being said,
I don't know if any boxing organization would let the weight disparity pass.
All right. Ready for these grievances?
Not really, but sure, let's go.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're going to hear about it.
All right. Well, I'll go because I got a grievance. Not that I sit in a ton of traffic. There's a little bit of traffic on my commute in the morning to work, and there's a little bit of traffic on my way home. Like, I'm talking about, like, maybe 5 to 10 minutes of, like, super slowed down on the highway to school and on the highway on the way back. And so that's not my grievance. My grievance is that I'm a solo driver. Like, my wife doesn't work anywhere near me, so can't carpool. Yeah, judge me all you will.
Such an enormous carbon footprint.
And so I can't take advantage of the high occupancy vehicle lane. So I'm just stuck with the other peasants that are...
I've never once thought about what HOV stands for, and I did not know that's what it was.
Oh, you're welcome. Drop that tidbit of knowledge on you.
It took me, I completely stopped listening to what you were saying. I was like, high occupancy vehicle. Wait a minute.
Ding, it's an acronym. And so I can't take advantage of this lane, but I'm always in the fast lane because when I come
from... you like to go fast.
Well, obviously. But also because for whatever reason, when the one highway I'm coming off of joins with the second highway that I used to get home, everyone stays in the first two lanes when they merge. They don't come over to the fast lane. So it's always more open. I can get around this curve much quicker, like further down the highway. And so as I'm doing this and I eventually slow down as the traffic all sort of catches up, I look over and these cars are just zipping by and they're all these solo asshole drivers using the HOV lane. And I'm just really frustrated with this. And like, who are these people that think that they're so much better than everybody else that they're just gaming the system? It's really, really annoying to me. And the OPP, our Ontario Provincial Police, have been on the highway more so lately, pulling these people over. So I'm happy that like finally someone's cracking down on this. But for every one that they get, like while that car's being pulled over, I can see the other cars going by. And I would say I counted, when was it, Thursday? And I counted for 20 cars. And 10 of them were like legit 2 or more in the car, and the other 10 solo drivers. And I was like, this is brutal. 50% are just abusing the HOV lane. It wasn't like they were driving. So like you can use the HOV lane if you have a hybrid or an electric car, solo driver, that's fine. Or if you have a motorcycle. And these cars in the 20, like they weren't electric cars or hybrids, because you can see, I can like read what kind of car it is. So that's my grievance. Are these super selfish, entitled people using the HOV lane with nobody else in the car?
Yeah, I would just be full of anxiety that like I'm just gonna come up to a cop any second. I've thought about it a couple of times. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah, I can't do it because I'm like, it's not worth it. That's like a $300 ticket.
Yeah.
So I have seen going to work, like people just speed on the 410. It's the highway that connects Brampton to Toronto. That's like their highway. And I see them and they notice that there's an OPP car, and you can see them like, especially during like rush hour traffic, if I'm taking Rome to dance. So like they're in it, and then all of a sudden like, oh shit, there's a cop, and they try to like pull themselves back over, and like I've seen them panic. No, because they don't have any regard for other people's cars. Like lane changing, like on the 410, like it's basically you signal and you just get to come over. There's no like waiting for a space. It's just like you're over.
It's like LeBron James. You have no regard for human life.
Yeah, they don't have any regard for human life. Absolutely not. And yeah, so basically it's just a signal. They turn on their signal and then they're in the next lane. They don't look. They don't slow down or speed up. It's just they're over. And it doesn't matter that there's a car right beside them. Like you just have to slow down. Or you have to hope that you're going fast enough that they see you and then swerve, and that they don't panic swerve and then get you with their car anyways. And there are always accidents on the 410. Always. Every day. Multiple. So, yeah. HOV, single ride drivers, just huge jerks, and that's my grievance.
Just people throwing on the blinker and going, good luck, everybody else.
Yeah.
Like the old Asian lady on Family Guy.
Yeah, it's just brutal. So that's my grievance. You got one?
Yeah. So I'm coaching Logan's baseball team, and it's
Here we go.
No, it's not anything like crazy like that. It's just like the amount of paperwork that's required to prove where you live to play in these tournaments is obscene. So
baseball bureaucracy. Who knew?
Well, I guess some people may or may not know it's also like age verification too, right? So like there was this kid, Danny Almonte,
He was actually 27.
made it all the way to Williamsport and won the championship.
The Little League World Series.
Yeah, and then they found out he was like 15 years old. He's supposed to be 12. So I don't know what it was like.
He was also a giant. Like he looked significantly bigger than everybody.
Humongous. So I don't know what the procedure was like before that. When I was on these teams, I was never the one filling out the paperwork, so I don't know. But it's just so labor intensive. So I have to provide so they try to make it a little bit easier by allowing you to get school enrollment verification, right, for the region that you live in. That doesn't work for me because my wife is our teacher, so we don't have that option. So I have to get a utility bill, but the utility bill can't be from earlier than February because some people just move into a neighborhood to play baseball and then fuck off. Apparently that's a thing. So we have to provide utility bills from February or earlier, and they need a tax or a
property
notice
tax?
of property tax, but I don't pay property taxes.
Oh, like a notice of assessment.
Yeah, so a notice of assessment, something from the federal government, and then you have to have your driver's license. You have to fill out 7 pieces of paper. It is a fucking chore.
I was this sounds like it's a barrier to getting people to play. It's a way to keep people from playing baseball.
It's a lot of work.
But I'm just thinking about people that wouldn't necessarily have some of this paperwork, like yourself, right? You don't have those school enrollment forms that would make this faster, right? Or say someone who has never been around organized sport ever. Like, having to like do that, or they're new to the area. Like, what's gonna happen to those people?
Dude, what if you just like innocently moved in like May?
Right? Like, it's a huge barrier to being able to play. So, how did this get sorted out?
I just have to do it. But also, like, I procrastinated a little bit.
What? Get out of here.
So it was a little bit. I didn't want to assault people in like the first week of the season to like start up this 10-year-old team. But then like time went on. I was like, oh, I'll do it. It became less that and more the procrastination part. And then I left myself like a week and a half between when I like really got this team going to when the paperwork was like the soft deadline for the paperwork.
Yep.
So like only half the team got their stuff in, so I have to like rush to get the other half of the team to get their shit in so I can give it to them for like this coming Monday. It's gonna be a hassle.
Sounds like you're gonna enjoy that.
I'm not.
I understand why this is a grievance.
I'm not gonna enjoy that.
Yep, I was speaking
And
sarcastically.
you're gonna be just like on vacation, like laughing, be like, huh, this fucking idiot. Look at all this work he's doing, and I'm just sitting here drinking a beer in Calgary in the middle of the day. Or, well, not beer, sorry, a cider or a cocktail. Or
something delicious. Yeah, I definitely will be like just like laughing and enjoying that.
Definitely, like, all your thought is going to be about me and what I'm doing.
Absolutely not. So this is a perfect segue to get into our gratitude. So as Dave has alluded to, my school year is almost finished. Thursday is the last day of school, and then I'll have the summer off, which sounds and feels amazing. So really excited about that. And I kick it off with a trip to Calgary for the long weekend, see our buddy Hogel. He just moved out there not too long ago, and I'm going to go and visit, and traveling solo for the first time in the last little while, though. So that will be nice, and I'll definitely look forward to that and just be doing whatever I want to do during the day there. So that's my gratitude, is that my summer is upon me, and I'm very excited about that. And I get back from Calgary, and I have family from the UK joining, like my cousin coming with his family, and it's always a good time when we're together. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we're traveling to British Columbia. So I have a good little start to my summer, and I definitely will be enjoying that and enjoying a drink or 5 or 7 or 50 over the next little while I get to spend time with friends and family. So that's my gratitude for the week.
Yeah, and John's abandoning us, so you'll hear a few different voices coming up the next few weeks trying to fill his enormous shoes.
Well, I just found out that Dave's going to miss me. That's his way of saying he's going to miss me.
There's so much more work that I have to do. trying to schedule all these people. God damn. So my gratitude is I don't get to go to Calgary, but on Canada Day, I'm going to be going to Alicia arranged for so she tutors for some people that work for the Jays, and she arranged to get us some Canada Day tickets.
Are you going to get the bobblehead, the Vlad and Dad bobblehead?
No, that's July 2nd.
Oh.
If I show up early, I get a replica Springer jersey.
Oh.
So Logan and I are going to try. We're going to show up like 2 hours before the game and line up and try and get a jersey. So that'll be fun. I'm excited to go. Be my first game of the season, and it's supposed to be like disgusting hot though, and like thunderstormy. So probably the roof's going to be closed. That would be the only not great part of it, but I'm excited to go anyways. Barrios is pitching.
Is he doing well?
He's doing better.
He's what's that other guy's name? Kikuchi?
No, Kikuchi is not pulling his weight.
But did you see in the news today that we signed Tony Romo? Relief pitcher Tony Romo.
Relief pitcher Tony Sergio Romo.
Yeah. Yep, Sergio's his middle name.
Yeah.
So that's good news for
He's got so many talents. He's borderline
Quarterback.
Hall of Fame football player, a great golfer, pitcher,
broadcaster, Jessica Simpson dater.
Yeah, What can't this guy do? Who does more things well, Dwayne Johnson or Tony Romo?
Dwayne Johnson, except for the XFL. We come full circle. So thanks for that tie in there, Dave, to help us wrap up this episode. Thanks for listening. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
Not really.
Okay, that's it. Bye.